Karen Finney was a Hillary Clinton strategist, and she was asked on CNN why it is that Hillary Clinton lost. She put on a masterclass in excuses and rationalizations and deflections. So let's listen, and then I want to come back and break it all down.
Well, look, I think the answer to that question is complicated. I think you heard some of it last week from Jennifer Palmieri and from Secretary Clinton herself and John Podesta. I think there were a number of factors, and I do think it's wise for us to take a step back and recognize that it's going to take a little time to fully understand what happened, but I'll offer a couple of thoughts. I mean, number one, I think one of the things we saw, there were a number of headwinds that just proved to be too strong. Electing the first woman president was always going to be tough. And I think given the level of sexism and misogyny that we saw come to the surface and be very public, I think that supports the fact that in this country we're going to have a real conversation about that. This was also the first election that we had without the protections of the Voting Rights Act. And I think there's a lot of good work going on now to try to understand what kind of implications that may have had. I also think that one of the things we have to take a look at is, what happened with the third-party votes, because in a number of cases, Hillary, lost some key states by very close margins in places where perhaps that third-party vote could have made up the difference. So I think there are any number of factors. I also happen to believe, having been on the road, the Comey letter did have an impact on our momentum. It was palpable, frankly, in some of the places that I visited. I was traveling, as you know, pretty consistently since the convention with Tim Kaine, and so had a real sense of what was happening on the ground. So again, I think there are a confluence of a whole host of things that there's not one simple answer to what happened here.
At the very beginning, you said you thought that sexism and misogyny may have played a role in Hillary Clinton's defeat, and I think there's no question that a lot of things were said in this campaign that many people deemed as sexist and misogynist, but what evidence do you have that voters made their decisions based on sexism or misogyny?
Well, look, I think a couple of things, right? Number one, I think one of the things we never really had a conversation about that, again, I think going forward we should talk about is how people feel about women in power. There is a reason that it is so hard for women, that we haven't had a female president before, and that it's harder for women candidates in executive positions. And I'll be really honest, and some of my colleagues won't like this, but I think, look, even in the primary, some of what we saw with the Bernie bros had a real chilling effect on a lot of women, and young women in particular. We learned about it during the primary. There were a number of these secret Facebook groups of young progressive women who were supporting Hillary, but frankly, they didn't want to deal with the backlash online from some of the Bernie bros.
That was absolutely disgusting and shameful and embarrassing and wrong on every point. Not a single thing in there was true, and we're going to break it down in detail. So first she opens up with, well, why do you think Hillary Clinton lost the election? Well, look, I mean, sexism is one of the big things. We're going to have a conversation about that. Okay, I'm going to come back to that one because that's obviously the big, the bomb that's dropped in the conversation. And then at the end, she came full circle, and she's not just saying, hey, man, maybe there's some sexism on the right in the general election. No, which, by the way, even that's a questionable claim because there were other reasons why people on the right cited why, no, I wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton. But at the end, she was like, no, when I say sexism, I mean the primaries. Bernie bros. Okay, all right, okay. Let me try to contain myself. Let's go through the rest, and we'll come back to that. So she says, well, the Voting Rights Act was a big one. Hold on now. Now, we've discussed the problem with, voter suppression. That is a real issue. There's no question about it. But how exactly would that have helped Hillary Clinton in the Rust Belt states, which were supposed to be the Democratic firewall that she lost? It wouldn't have helped her there. Even if there wasn't a repeal of the Voting Rights Act, it wouldn't have helped her there. She needed to hold that firewall, and she didn't. And even if the Supreme Court never touched that issue, she still would have lost the election. So that's what we call a deflection. That's what we call an excuse. That's what we call a rationalization. That is not true, Karen. That's not accurate. Now, we should still put the Voting Rights Act back in place. Duh. I mean, obviously, it's a no-brainer because it does actually do voter suppression, but it wouldn't have saved her the election. Now, then she goes to, well, third parties. Oh, the favorite scapegoat, the favorite whipping boy that these people love to come back to. That is not true, and it can be proven with one fact. When you look at the number of people who voted for Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, it was incredibly small. Jill, I think it was about 1% at this point. They're still not done counting all the votes yet. I don't know why they're taking forever to finish Michigan. But Jill Stein, about 1%. Gary Johnson, maybe 3%. Now, Democrats, 9% of them voted for Donald Trump. So why would you randomly pick like, oh, the third parties, that's the problem, it's the third parties. If every single Jill Stein voter voted for Hillary Clinton, she still wouldn't have won the election. Now, when you bring that up, then they move the goalposts. And they say, well, but if you give her all of Jill Stein's votes and 50% of Gary Johnson's votes, which there's no reason to do because he's a libertarian, and historically they take more from people who would vote for the Republican candidate, but then maybe she would win. But that makes no sense. Why would you do that? And again, why would you go to the third parties to talk about them when 9% of Democrats voted for Donald Trump? Because it doesn't fit your narrative, because you can't say it's the fucking Democrats who voted for Donald Trump. So you got a third party. The whole point is to smear third parties to try to prevent people from voting third party in the future and suck it up and vote for the candidate of their party, even if they hate their party and they hate the candidate of their party. So again, it's a deflection. It's a smear. It's a rationalization. It's not an actual reason why she lost. All right. Then Comey letter. This is the most made up of all of them. Because understand, so he dropped a bomb about 2 weeks before the election. Okay, we're kind of, sort of, maybe, but not really reopening the investigation in Hillary Clinton's emails. And then they always forget to tell you the second part. What's the second part? Like 2 days or 3 days before the election, there was another news story. He cleared her of everything. So if anything, it helped her. In fact, we saw a giant bump the day before Election Day in Hillary Clinton's poll numbers. So, she was up, 2 points or so? And then after the Comey announcement that there indeed is not going to be a further press on this and she's cleared of everything, she went from 2 points up to like 4 points up. So they never tell you that part. They just tell you, oh, Comey, he did the bad thing. Okay, but then he did something that actually helped you. He did something that you like, but you don't talk about that because it doesn't fit the narrative. So every single thing they talk about is to deflect from what the actual problem is. You know why Hillary Clinton lost the election? Because she's Hillary Clinton. It's not because she's a woman. It's not because of the Bernie bros. It's not because of the Voting Rights Act or the third parties or the Comey letter. Hillary Clinton lost because of Hillary Clinton. Did you know she had higher untrustworthy numbers than Donald frickin' Trump? You built that. She built that. You want to know how I know she built that? Because there's endless fucking videos on YouTube, her words, putting them back to back. I am against the Colombia Free Trade Agreement. I am for the Colombia Free Trade Agreement. I am against gay marriage. I am for gay marriage. I am against the TPP. I am for the TPP. I am a centrist. I am a progressive. Everything she fucking flip-flops on. Now, Donald Trump, he flip-flops on everything too. But why the fuck would the Democrats run a candidate where there's an open question as to who flip-flops and who lies more? It's not like there was an option where the person doesn't flip-flop on everything. Oh, right, there was. His name was Bernie Sanders. But now let's come back full circle here. The Bernie bros. They're still blaming it on the Bernie bros. This is partisan hackery 101. Blame it on the people who have the solution. We have the solution. We were warning you. We weren't warning you because we dislike you. We were warning you because we didn't want a President Donald Trump. Our warning was, look out, she's a weak candidate. She can lose to this monster. We were citing the polls about Bernie Sanders beating Donald Trump because they're true and the evidence was there. There were some polls where Bernie Sanders was up over Donald Trump 15 points. 15 points. On average, he was up over 10 points. And they're like, no, let's run the person who was up about 2 or 3 on average. Why would you do that? And I also find it hilarious that They think, oh, the Bernie bros, they attack her unfairly. But hold on. First of all, they're not attacking you unfairly. They're attacking you accurately. But you don't think the Republicans are going to attack you even unfairly? They're not only going to attack you accurately in some cases. Most of the stuff they say is bullshit, though. But they're going to attack you unfairly. And then they also turn around and say, well, you know, Bernie wouldn't be able to take the heat of Republican opposition research and attacks. But you're making that argument right now about Hillary Clinton not being able to withstand it because you're saying she can't even withstand attacks from the made-up Bernie bros. So do you not get that contradiction? You're like, oh, he's a weak candidate. He can't take attacks. Hillary lost because she got attacked and she couldn't take it. Which is it? Oh, my God. And by the way, again, so to go back to the Bernie bros, this is Bernie bros. These are supporters of the most liberal senator in the United States of America right now. That's not hyperbole. That's his voting record. So this is a guy who stood up against sexism and bigotry of all kinds every step of his career. And the people supporting him agree with him on that. Bernie Sanders calls himself a fucking feminist. So you're saying people who are supporting a feminist, somehow they're sexist. No, but that's a hack argument, and you know it's not true. You know it's nowhere near true. Because you know what it is? I'll tell you. They don't have an answer when Bernie supporters go, here's the problem with Hillary Clinton. She voted for the Iraq War, which led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. She voted for the Patriot Act, which basically got rid of our Constitution. No more due process, no more habeas corpus, no more protection from unreasonable search and seizure. We have extrajudicial prisons all over the place. She voted for that piece of legislation. She supported NAFTA, which shipped out jobs. She pushed for TPP 45 times. She supported the deregulation of Wall Street, which led to the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession. And I can go on and on here. I'm just getting warmed up. This is just a little appetizer. When I bring up every single substantive criticism, Syria, Libya, you name it, they don't have an answer to that. They can't respond to that. They can't say, hey, Kyle, hey, Bernie supporters, here's why you're wrong on the policy, X, Y, and Z, so therefore Hillary's the better candidate. Since they're cornered when you bring that up, what do? They have to smear you because there's no way out. Sexist! You're sexist! For being against the Iraq War, for being against the Patriot Act, for being a principled progressive who wants to get somebody in there who agrees with you on the issues and would make the country better, you're just sexist. That's what you are. You're misogynists. So the most amazing thing to me is it's been proven that they were the wrong direction to go for the Democratic Party. The corporatist establishment wing of the Democratic Party was decimated by a fucking reality star buffoon with a ferret on his head. And they still have the nerve to go out there in public and act like, we still have our dignity intact, and I'm going to tell you exactly why she lost the election. And it was all things, shocker, all things that have nothing to do with her. No responsibility. Don't take any responsibility. No accountability. It's all shit that has nothing to do with her. Hillary Clinton lost the election because of anything and everything but her and the establishment Democrats. No. You lost because you're Hillary Clinton, and you lost because you're part of the establishment Democrat hack wing of the party, which should gone. You should go away. You're the demise of the Democratic Party. If you guys don't get it through your fucking thick heads that your time is done, and you try to double down on this strategy of being pro-corporate and pro-establishment, the Democratic Party is going to be decimated. They're talking about running Tim Kaine in 2020. You want to lose to Donald Trump again, you fucking morons? Hey, if that's the path you want to go, there's going to be a new third party. Doesn't matter how many people come out there who mean well, who are progressive, who say, okay, but guess what? That's going to split the vote. That's going to leave the Democrats in tatters. It wouldn't matter because people are so sick of your shit that they don't even care because they need to get away from you because you're hacky. And this is how right-wingers act, man. Like, this is after Mitt Romney lost. What did he say? It's got nothing to do with me being an establishment prick, being grown-up Richie Rich, talking like a fucking robot, being an idiot who only cares about the corporations. It's because Obama promised free stuff to the black people. When Romney said that, the entire left was like, what an idiot, deflecting, not taking responsibility for being a shitty candidate and being a sellout. Well, now they're doing the same thing with Hillary Clinton. So, oh, no, it's not because she was a bad candidate. It's not because, you know, she was corrupt and she's an insider and she's the status quo and she sold out to Wall Street and she's got all these big money donors and she's too hawkish. It's not because of any substantive reasons. No, it's because of the sexism and because voter suppression and third parties and the Comey letter and it was fucking cloudy that day and I didn't feel good and there were all these things going on and see what had happened was what had happened was you lost because you suck. You lost because you're not the right candidates. You lost because you're not appealing. You lost because you don't have a vision for the future. You lost because you're not actually liberal. And instead of owning it, they're turning it around and smearing the exact people that have the fucking solution. Shame on you. Shame on you, Karen Finney.